Kelly Clarkson has built an entire career on one simple idea. Everyone has a story worth hearing. From emotional conversations with everyday people to heartfelt interviews with some of the biggest names in entertainment, Kelly has always been known as the host who makes guests feel comfortable. But what happens when that warmth meets someone who refuses to open up? According to the dramatic claims surrounding this story, Meghan Markle's appearance on the Kelly Clarkson show became a conversation nobody expected. What started as a routine celebrity interview allegedly turned into an uncomfortable exchange filled with tension, unexpected reactions, and a moment that left viewers questioning what really happened. Kelly tried to do what she always does, create a genuine connection. She asked personal questions, searched for common ground, and attempted to move beyond headlines. But instead of a relaxed conversation, the atmosphere reportedly became colder with every passing minute. Then came the moment when Kelly's patience was pushed to its limit. A simple question allegedly changed the entire direction of the interview, leading to a confrontation that sparked intense discussion among fans and viewers. Was it a misunderstanding between two very different personalities? Was it a clash of communication styles? Or was there something deeper behind the tension? The story of this controversial exchange has become one of the most talked about celebrity interview scenarios, and today we're breaking down how the conversation allegedly went from friendly introduction to a dramatic turning point. The lights were on, the audience was ready, and the Kelly Clarkson show was prepared for another memorable celebrity conversation. Known for her ability to make guests laugh, open up, and share personal stories, Kelly Clarkson had created a reputation as one of the most approachable hosts on daytime television. Unlike traditional interviews focused only on headlines and promotion, Kelly's style has always centered around connection. She doesn't just ask what someone is working on. She tries to understand the person behind the public image. Her fans have come to expect warmth, honesty, and moments where celebrities show a side of themselves that audiences rarely see. That was the atmosphere surrounding Meghan Markle's highly anticipated appearance. Meghan, a former actress, member of the British royal family, and public figure who has experienced years of intense media attention, arrived with a story that had already captured worldwide interest. For many viewers, the interview represented a chance to hear from Meghan in a more relaxed environment. Away from royal headlines and constant public debates, people wanted to see a different side of her thoughts, her experiences, and the projects she had been building. But according to the dramatic narrative surrounding this alleged exchange, the conversation quickly took an unexpected direction. From the opening moments, viewers noticed a different energy. Kelly brought her usual enthusiasm and attempted to create a comfortable atmosphere, while Meghan appeared more reserved and careful with her responses. What should have been a simple conversation began to feel like a difficult balance between two completely different approaches. Kelly wanted a natural discussion, the kind where guests share stories, emotions, and personal experiences. Meghan, however, was portrayed as someone focused on maintaining control over the conversation and carefully choosing what she wanted to reveal. As the interview continued, the difference between their styles became more noticeable. Every question seemed to create another challenge. Every attempt at connection appeared to create more distance. And then came the moment that allegedly changed everything. A question that seemed simple on the surface reportedly opened the door to a much bigger disagreement, pushing the conversation into territory neither side expected. What followed became the center of the controversy, a tense exchange that raised questions about celebrity interviews, public image, and whether two strong personalities could find common ground when their communication styles collided. Before the conversation ever began, expectations were already high. For the Kelly Clarkson show, every guest appearance is built around the same formula. Create a comfortable environment where people can relax, laugh, and share something personal with the audience. Kelly Clarkson's biggest strength as a host has always been her ability to make even famous personalities feel like they are having a genuine conversation rather than sitting through a formal interview. That was exactly the kind of atmosphere Kelly wanted to create when Meghan Markle appeared as a guest. Behind the scenes, the expectation was that this would be a meaningful discussion. Meghan had lived through years of public attention, major life changes, and intense media coverage. For Kelly, who had also experienced difficult personal moments while living in the public eye, the conversation represented an opportunity to connect through shared experiences. Kelly understood what it felt like to have millions of people discussing your personal life. She knew the pressure that comes with being recognized everywhere, and having private struggles become public conversations. Because of that, she reportedly approached the interview with empathy rather than judgment. The goal was not to create controversy. The goal was to have a human conversation. Kelly's approach was simple. Start with warmth, ask genuine questions, and allow the guest to guide the discussion. She had used this style successfully with countless guests before. Whether someone was a world-famous celebrity or an everyday person sharing their story, Kelly's method remained the same: make people feel seen and heard. But Meghan Markle was not an ordinary guest. Every answer, every reaction, and every topic carried years of public discussion behind it. Her relationship with the media, her royal history, and her personal choices had already been analyzed by millions of people around the world. That meant this interview came with a unique challenge. Kelly wanted a natural conversation, but Meghan entered the discussion with the weight of past experiences and public scrutiny surrounding her. At first, everyone expected the interview to be another successful moment for Kelly, a warm conversation between two recognizable figures. But as the cameras turned on and the first questions were asked, it became clear that this would not be the easy, relaxed conversation many had imagined. The difference between Kelly's open, spontaneous style and Meghan's more cautious approach began creating a tension that would continue building throughout the interview. The interview began the way many viewers expected, with Kelly Clarkson bringing her usual energy and enthusiasm to the stage. She welcomed Meghan Markle with a friendly introduction, a warm smile, and the same approach she had used with countless guests before. Kelly's goal was simple: make Meghan feel comfortable and start the conversation on a positive note. But according to the dramatic version of events surrounding this alleged exchange, something felt different almost immediately. The first few moments carried an unusual level of distance. Instead of a relaxed back-and-forth conversation, the interaction appeared more formal and carefully controlled. Kelly asked simple opening questions designed to create a connection, but the responses were described as brief, measured, and difficult to build upon. For a host like Kelly, who depends on natural conversation, this created an unexpected challenge. Normally, one answer leads to another question. A personal story creates another personal story. A shared experience becomes a bridge between two people. But this time, every attempt to create that bridge seemed to hit a wall. Kelly continued with her signature style. She smiled, leaned into the conversation, and tried to find a topic where both sides could connect. She wasn't looking for controversy or a headline. She was trying to understand the person sitting across from her. But the more Kelly attempted to make the conversation feel casual, the more difficult it became. The audience, who had arrived expecting a light and entertaining interview, began noticing the shift in atmosphere. The energy that usually filled the studio started to feel more serious. Instead of laughter and easy conversation, there was a growing sense that both sides were approaching the discussion from completely different perspectives. Kelly wanted openness. Meghan appeared focused on caution. And that difference became the central challenge of the interview. For Kelly, a successful conversation comes from moments that feel natural. Unexpected answers, personal stories, and honest reactions. But for Meghan, who had spent years dealing with intense public attention, protecting personal boundaries appeared to be a priority. Neither approach was necessarily unusual. Many public figures become careful when discussing their lives in front of millions of viewers. However, the contrast between Kelly's relaxed interview style and Meghan's guarded responses created a tension that became harder to ignore. Still, Kelly did not give up. Instead of becoming frustrated, she tried another approach. She moved toward lighter topics, hoping to find something that would bring back the comfortable atmosphere everyone expected. But what happened next would test just how difficult it was to turn this interview into the warm conversation Kelly had originally hoped for. After noticing that the conversation was not flowing naturally, Kelly Clarkson did what she had always done throughout her career. She tried harder to create a genuine connection. Instead of pushing into difficult topics, she shifted her approach. She moved away from serious discussions and searched for lighter, more personal subjects that could help both sides relax. This was Kelly's strength as a host. She understood that the best interviews are not always created by perfectly prepared questions. Sometimes the most memorable moments happen when two people simply talk, laugh, and discover something they have in common. So Kelly began looking for those moments. She asked about interests, daily life, and personal experiences. The kinds of questions that make a conversation feel less like an interview and more like two people getting to know each other. For Kelly, these questions were not meant to invade privacy. They were meant to show the person behind the public image. She had used this approach with many guests before. A simple question about music could lead to a childhood memory. A question about family could reveal a personal story. A conversation about challenges could remind viewers that celebrities also experience normal human struggles. But according to the dramatic narrative surrounding this alleged interview, Meghan remained careful with every response. Instead of opening up, she appeared determined to keep the conversation focused only on specific topics. Every attempt Kelly made to create a more personal connection seemed to create more distance. Kelly tried humor. She tried empathy. She tried sharing her own experiences to show that she understood what it felt like to live under public attention. The goal was not to compare lives or suggest that two people had gone through identical situations. Kelly was simply trying to communicate one message. Difficult experiences can sometimes create a connection between people. But the attempt did not create the response she expected. The conversation became a clash between two different philosophies. Kelly believed that honesty and openness allowed people to connect. Meghan appeared to approach the conversation with more caution, choosing carefully what parts of her life she wanted to discuss. As the interview continued, Kelly found herself working harder than usual to keep the conversation moving. She continued smiling, continued asking questions, and continued searching for a topic that could change the mood. But the more she tried to create a relaxed atmosphere, the more obvious the difference between their personalities became. One person was trying to open a door. The other seemed determined to keep that door carefully closed. And as the conversation moved forward, the tension that started as a small difference in communication style began turning into something much bigger. As the interview continued, Kelly Clarkson realized that finding common ground was becoming more difficult than expected. What started as a friendly conversation slowly turned into a careful exchange where every question seemed to require more thought and more explanation. Kelly was no longer just following the natural flow of the discussion. She was trying to understand why the conversation felt so distant. Wanting to move forward, Kelly shifted toward topics connected to Meghan Markle's public work, projects, and future goals. These were areas where Meghan had experience and where the discussion could have become both informative and inspiring. The intention was simple: focus on achievements, ideas, and the things Meghan wanted audiences to know about. But according to the dramatic storyline surrounding this alleged exchange, even these questions created unexpected tension. Kelly asked about Meghan's projects and the causes she supported. She wanted to hear the stories behind the work, the personal moments, the motivations, and the experiences that inspired those efforts. For Kelly, storytelling was the heart of every meaningful interview. She believed audiences connected with real examples because stories create understanding. They allow viewers to see the emotion behind a mission instead of only hearing about it in general terms. However, Meghan was portrayed as approaching the discussion differently. Rather than sharing personal examples, she focused on broader ideas and larger messages. The difference became clear. Kelly was searching for the human story behind the public image. Meghan appeared focused on protecting the image and message she wanted to present. Neither approach was unusual. Many public figures carefully manage what they reveal, especially after years of intense attention. But in a conversation built around personal connection, the contrast between these two styles created more distance. Kelly continued trying to keep the mood positive. She asked follow-up questions, showed interest, and attempted to redirect the conversation whenever it became uncomfortable. But each time she tried to make the interview feel more natural, another barrier seemed to appear. The audience that expected a relaxed celebrity conversation was now watching something completely different. A struggle between a host trying to create openness and a guest trying to maintain control. The pressure of the moment continued building. Kelly had already tried humor, personal stories, and lighter topics. Now she was attempting to find a balance between respecting boundaries and still having the type of authentic conversation viewers expected from her show. But eventually, the discussion reached the one area that would reportedly change the entire atmosphere of the interview. A simple question about Meghan's personal life would soon become the turning point, the moment when the conversation moved from uncomfortable to explosive. Up until this point, Kelly Clarkson had tried almost every approach possible. She had started with warmth. She had tried humor. She had asked about work, personal interests, and experiences. She had attempted to create the kind of relaxed conversation that viewers had come to expect from her show. But according to the dramatic narrative surrounding this alleged interview, the atmosphere remained tense. Then came a question that seemed simple. A question that, in any ordinary conversation, would not have appeared unusual at all. Kelly asked about Harry. It was not presented as a controversial topic. It was not framed as an accusation or a challenge. It was the kind of question many interviewers ask when speaking with someone whose public life has always been connected to their partner. But the reaction reportedly changed the entire energy in the room. The moment Harry's name entered the conversation, the mood shifted. The relaxed approach Kelly had been trying to create seemed to disappear, and the discussion moved into much more sensitive territory. For Meghan Markle, conversations about her husband and their shared public journey had always attracted enormous attention. Their relationship, their decisions, and their life away from royal duties had been discussed around the world for years. Because of that history, even a simple question could carry a much deeper meaning. Kelly, however, appeared to view it differently. From her perspective, asking about a spouse was a normal part of getting to know someone. It was not about creating drama. It was about understanding the person sitting in front of her. The difference between those two viewpoints created the biggest disagreement of the interview. Kelly saw a conversation. Meghan appeared to see a topic surrounded by years of unwanted attention. And that difference in perspective became the moment where the tension reached another level. The audience could feel the change. The tone became more serious. The friendly rhythm of the interview disappeared, replaced by a discussion about privacy, public image, and the difficulty of separating personal life from public expectations. Kelly attempted to explain that her intention was not to focus on headlines or rumors. She wanted to understand Meghan's experiences beyond what people already believed they knew. But according to the storyline of the exchange, Meghan remained frustrated by the direction of the conversation. The question itself was not complicated. The meaning behind it was. And that was the moment when what began as an awkward interview allegedly transformed into a direct confrontation between two very different views of what a public conversation should be. From there, the interview would move into its most intense stage. After spending most of the conversation trying to keep things calm and positive, Kelly Clarkson reached a moment where she could no longer ignore the growing tension. For the majority of the interview, Kelly had remained patient. She had adjusted her questions, changed topics, and repeatedly tried to create a comfortable environment. Her usual approach was built around kindness and understanding, but according to the dramatic version of this alleged exchange, every attempt seemed to create more distance instead of connection. Finally, Kelly decided to address what was happening directly. Instead of continuing to pretend everything was normal, she acknowledged the atmosphere in the room. She explained that she came into the conversation hoping to have a genuine discussion, not an argument. Kelly's message was clear. She was not trying to attack Meghan. She was trying to connect with her. She explained that her questions were not designed to create headlines or embarrass her guest. They were the same type of questions she had asked many people before. Questions meant to understand someone's experiences, personality, and perspective. But the longer the conversation continued, the more Kelly felt that her attempts at friendliness were being misunderstood. She had tried to relate through shared experiences. She had tried to create moments of honesty. She had tried to move away from public narratives and focus on the person sitting across from her. Yet, according to the storyline, those efforts were interpreted differently. This became the heart of the disagreement. Kelly believed she was offering openness. Meghan appeared to view the same approach as unwanted pressure. The conversation had moved beyond individual questions. It had become a discussion about trust, boundaries, and how two people can interpret the same situation in completely different ways. Kelly then explained that being open and human was the foundation of her show. Her audience connected with moments where guests shared real emotions, personal experiences, and honest reflections. That was the identity she had built, creating a space where people did not have to be perfect or carefully controlled. They could simply be themselves. But the tension between the two approaches had reached a breaking point. Kelly was no longer just trying to continue the interview. She was trying to explain why the conversation had become difficult in the first place. The audience watched as the friendly host known for her warmth showed a different side. Not an angry side, but a side that felt disappointed and frustrated after making repeated efforts to create a positive moment. And as both sides defended their positions, it became clear that this was no longer just a celebrity interview. It had become a clash between two different ideas of communication. One person believing that honesty creates connection. the other believing that caution is necessary for protection. And with emotions rising, the conversation moved closer and closer toward the moment that would define the entire exchange. As the conversation continued, the tension that had been building from the beginning finally reached its highest point. For Kelly Clarkson, the situation had become increasingly frustrating. She had entered the interview expecting a meaningful conversation, but instead found herself constantly trying to repair the connection between herself and her guest. According to the dramatic narrative surrounding this alleged exchange, Kelly felt that every attempt to create a friendly moment was being interpreted as something negative. She had asked about personal experiences. She had asked about work. She had tried lighter topics. She had attempted to show understanding. But instead of finding common ground, the conversation continued moving further apart. Eventually, Kelly stopped trying to simply guide the interview and began speaking more honestly about what she was experiencing in that moment. She explained that she was not approaching Meghan as a critic, a reporter, or someone looking for a controversial headline. She was approaching her as another person having a conversation. That distinction became the center of the disagreement. Kelly believed that a conversation required both sides to participate. A host could ask questions, but a genuine connection required openness from both people. The exchange reportedly became more emotional as both personalities defended their own perspectives. Meghan's position centered around the idea that public figures have the right to protect certain parts of their lives and control how their stories are discussed. Kelly's position was that boundaries and connection could exist at the same time. She believed it was possible to respect someone's privacy while still having an honest and natural conversation. The disagreement was no longer about one specific question. It was about trust. It was about perception. It was about whether a simple conversation could exist when both people entered the room with completely different expectations. The audience, expecting a normal celebrity interview, was now witnessing a much more intense moment. The energy in the studio had changed completely. What began with smiles and introductions had turned into a serious discussion about public pressure, personal boundaries, and communication. Kelly, known for her calm and friendly personality, appeared determined to explain her side. She wanted viewers to understand that her intention was never to embarrass or challenge Meghan. She simply wanted the conversation she believed both sides had agreed to have. But as emotions continued rising, the possibility of a smooth ending became less likely. The interview had reached the point where neither side seemed willing to completely step back. And then came the moment that would reportedly leave the audience stunned. The moment when the conversation reached a breaking point and everything changed. The atmosphere had completely changed. What began as a highly anticipated celebrity interview had turned into a tense exchange where both sides appeared unable to find common ground. According to the dramatic storyline surrounding this alleged moment, the conversation had reached a point where continuing felt almost impossible. For Kelly Clarkson, the frustration came from feeling that every effort to create a positive discussion had failed. She had tried patience. She had tried understanding. She had tried changing the direction of the conversation. But instead of becoming more comfortable, the interview had reportedly become more divided with every passing minute. For Meghan Markle, the situation represented something different. After years of being questioned, analyzed, and discussed publicly, maintaining control over personal topics appeared to be extremely important. And that difference created the final breaking point. The conversation was no longer about the original questions. It had become about how each person felt they were being treated. Kelly felt she was offering a safe space for an honest conversation. Meghan appeared to feel that the discussion was moving into territory she did not want to explore. According to the dramatic version of events, the tension reached a moment where Meghan decided the conversation needed to end. The possibility that the interview could stop suddenly created shock among everyone watching. A daytime talk show is usually built around smiles, laughter, and positive moments. Guests arrive, conversations happen, and both sides leave with a memorable experience. But this situation was different. The audience that had expected an entertaining celebrity appearance was now watching an uncomfortable conclusion unfold. Kelly, known for making guests feel welcome, was suddenly facing the possibility that the interview would end before either side found resolution. The moment represented the complete opposite of what she had hoped for. Instead of a meaningful conversation, the exchange had become a public disagreement about communication, trust, and expectations. When the interview allegedly came to an end, viewers were left with more questions than answers. Was the disagreement caused by a misunderstanding? Did two very different personalities simply fail to connect? Or did the pressure of being in the public make a normal conversation much harder than it needed to be? Whatever the reason, the alleged walk-off moment became the part of the story that captured the most attention. It transformed a simple interview into a debate about celebrity culture and the challenges of having authentic conversations under the spotlight. And after the cameras stopped rolling, the discussion was far from over. After the alleged confrontation came to an end, the conversation did not disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. Instead, the story continued to grow as viewers began discussing what they believed had happened during the tense exchange. For many fans of Kelly Clarkson, the moment represented something they had always admired about her: her willingness to remain authentic and stay true to her personality. They believed Kelly entered the conversation with good intentions and tried repeatedly to create a comfortable environment. Supporters pointed out that Kelly's interview style had always been based on kindness and emotional honesty. They argued that she was not trying to create drama, but was simply attempting to have the kind of open conversation her audience expected. However, not everyone saw the situation the same way. Some viewers argued that interviews with public figures require a different level of sensitivity. They suggested that celebrities who have experienced intense media attention may naturally approach certain topics with caution, especially when their personal lives have been discussed publicly for years. This created a larger debate. Was Kelly simply trying to connect with her guest? Or was Meghan justified in being careful about what she shared? The disagreement became bigger than one interview. It became a discussion about the challenges celebrities face when they appear on television. Every answer can be analyzed. Every reaction can become a headline. Even a simple question can carry years of history behind it. That is what makes celebrity interviews so complicated. Hosts want authenticity because audiences connect with real emotions and personal stories. But guests often understand that every word they say can shape public perception. The alleged exchange between Kelly and Meghan became a perfect example of that conflict. One side wanted a natural conversation. The other side wanted control over the narrative. And when those two goals collide, even a friendly interview can become a difficult situation. Online discussions continued as people shared their opinions, analyzed every moment, and debated who handled the situation better. Some praised Kelly for standing by her interview style. Others argued that understanding a guest's boundaries is equally important. But regardless of which side people supported, one thing became clear: the power of a celebrity interview extends far beyond the studio. A few minutes of tension can create days, weeks, or even months of conversation. And this alleged moment became another reminder that in the world of entertainment, the conversation often continues long after the cameras stop recording. Beyond the controversy and the opinions surrounding the alleged exchange, the situation represents something much bigger about the modern world of celebrity interviews. At their best, interviews are supposed to create understanding. They allow audiences to see beyond fame, beyond headlines, and beyond the carefully created public image. A great interview can remind people that celebrities are not just names on a screen. They are individuals with experiences, challenges, and emotions. That is the type of connection Kelly Clarkson has built her reputation around. Her approach has always focused on creating moments that feel natural. Instead of simply asking about achievements, she often tries to discover the person behind them. She looks for stories, memories, and personal details that allow viewers to relate to guests on a human level. But the alleged disagreement with Meghan Markle highlights one of the biggest challenges in modern interviews: the balance between openness and privacy. Public figures live in a complicated position. Millions of people want to know more about them, but at the same time, constant attention can make them more careful about what they reveal. After years of being analyzed by the public, some celebrities learn to protect themselves by controlling conversations and choosing their words carefully. From a host's perspective, however, a conversation needs a certain level of openness to feel genuine. A host can create the environment. A host can ask thoughtful questions. A host can offer understanding. But a truly memorable conversation requires both sides to participate. That is why moments like this create so much discussion. They are not just about one question or one answer. They represent a larger conflict between public curiosity and personal boundaries. In today's entertainment world, every interview carries pressure. A casual comment can become a headline. A facial expression can become a debate. A few seconds of tension can create millions of opinions. The challenge for celebrities is finding a way to be authentic while protecting themselves. The challenge for interviewers is finding the line between meaningful questions and uncomfortable territory. And the challenge for audiences is understanding that every conversation has different perspectives. The alleged Kelly Clarkson and Meghan Markle exchange became memorable because it represented something viewers recognize in everyday life. The difficulty of connecting when two people approach a conversation with completely different expectations. Sometimes the biggest moments in television are not created by perfect interviews. Sometimes they come from unexpected disagreements, uncomfortable silence, and the moments when personalities collide. And whether viewers saw it as a misunderstanding, a clash of communication styles, or something deeper, the conversation became a reminder of one important truth. A real conversation requires more than just asking questions. It requires listening, understanding, and a willingness from both sides to meet somewhere in the middle. At the end of the day, the alleged exchange between Kelly Clarkson and Meghan Markle became about much more than a single interview. It became a conversation about connection, communication, and the challenges that come with living life in the public eye. Kelly Clarkson entered the discussion with the same approach that made her show popular: warmth, curiosity, and a desire to find the person behind the celebrity image. Meghan Markle entered with her own experiences, her own concerns, and her own reasons for being careful about what she shared. And when those two approaches collided, the result was a moment that captured the attention of viewers everywhere. Some people saw a host who was simply trying to create an honest conversation. Others saw a guest trying to protect personal boundaries in a world where every word can become a headline. But perhaps the biggest lesson from this situation is that communication is never just about the questions being asked. It is also about how those questions are received, how they are understood, and whether both sides are willing to listen. Because at the center of every interview are real people. People with different personalities, different experiences, and different ways of handling pressure. The most memorable conversations are not always the easiest ones. Sometimes the moments that create the biggest discussions are the moments where things do not go according to plan. Whether viewers believe Kelly handled the situation perfectly or think Meghan had valid reasons for being cautious, one thing is certain. The alleged exchange became a topic people could not ignore. It reminded audiences that behind every public appearance is a complicated human story. So the question remains, was Kelly Clarkson right to push for a more open conversation? Or should she have respected Meghan's approach from the beginning? And if you were watching that interview, how would you have handled the situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more celebrity moments, entertainment stories, and discussions about the conversations that keep audiences talking.